All right, and welcome to another awesome episode of Detections. Ow! I'm your host, BSD Bandit, along with...
Understudy 77.
And Exiled, but you stole my sleepy stuff because I just woke up from a nap before we start recording, so...
I stole nothing. That wasn't sleepy. That was sad-ish. That was a counterbalance to BSD's excitement.
that your sadness channeled the conversation we were having in Discord earlier where we started talking about the episodes of Avatar where Appa is taken away.
Oh, God, dude. Okay. Don't do that to me. That's going to put me in such a bad mood now.
But remember...
that's the saddest part of that show.
But remember Cactus Juice. That's a funny part of that section.
That's fair, but that's such a sad part of that show.
Yeah, we were having the conversation. I started tearing up again. Yeah, that's a really, really sad part of the show. I feel it in my gut every time.
Yeah, it's a very sad part of that show.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, me being the happy guy, I'd probably find some type of silver lining in that part of the show. Just saying.
Yeah, it's Sokka getting hallucinations from drinking cactus juice.
Yeah, and I think they had to kind of add some of that, right?
Because it was so
they had
heavy.
To add some specifically funny parts.
Yeah, because it was so heavy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it was.
Well, see, there's a silver lining.
That's exactly right. It was heavy.
Anyway, on different stuff, what's been going on with you two since BSD wasn't here with the last episode because we had an awesome special guest on.
We did. That was a really good episode. I'll go last. I'll actually, because I got a lot to talk about training and stuff. So I'll go later.
Yeah. So BSD, since it's been two episodes since we heard, what's been going on with you?
Oh my goodness. Been working on a lot of stuff between preparing for different podcasts, meaning our company, Red Siege, we do a Red Siege cast. So that's what I mean by, we call it podcast, was Red Siege cast. Also preparing for several different talks, KringleCon, and I'll be on the RSA panel in December. So that's going to be pretty cool. So I've been, working to get everything going for that.
Yep.
And on top of
That's
just
awesome.
doing different engagements, just super amped, getting an influx of retro gaming consoles. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for sending it to me. I love y'all. I just had to get that shout out. And that's been pretty much what's been going on. And of course, my usual happy self and just enjoying life one day at a time, man. I've been rocking. Ow!
Nice. Exile, what about you, man?
Well, I finally hit a point today with the OS query stuff with the project that I've been on to where it's at a stable point now. So that was a huge thing to get to there. Felt good about that. And I learned a lot about getting OS query up and running on various operating systems. Still kind of out. Not sure where I'm landing with SUSE Enterprise as an operating system itself. But other than that, trying to be a responsible citizen, staying indoor, wearing masks when I need to.
As we should all do.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Checking in with my dad because he had some medical stuff come up recently where he had to go to the ER. So, making sure he doesn't need a hip replacement, stuff like that. Being the good kid as the aging parent thing is happening. And trying to convince a friend to do some of their creative work in a more entrepreneurial way so they can get some money on the side doing a thing that they love.
Nice.
Awesome.
Dude, with me, I'll tell you, and this is going to take a minute because it's been training, which is odd for me because I don't usually do a whole lot of training, but the world just kind of lined up, right? So a couple weeks ago, and I didn't talk about this, I did Zeke training with Corelight.
Hell yeah.
A 4-day. Really good training. It was actually taught by a buddy of mine, Aaron or Surefire, for anybody who knows him. He's involved in OpenSock and does a lot of really cool stuff. So it was really fun to do like official training with somebody that I could give shit to the whole time. And vice versa. Like he gave me a lot of shit too. Like I'd pull him into like a side room to like give him an opinion on something. He'd be like, I'm just going to put you on the spot with that opinion in front of everybody. I was like, don't do that. He's like, but I'm going to.
Hell yeah. That's
man.
That sounds like an excellent training.
Yeah. So, I mean, really good training. I mean, it's, the setting up, like everything from Zeke, from setting up to like threat hunting with it to network operation sides, including 2 CTFs. Like the first day ended and the second day ended both with CTFs that he kept up. So like using Zeke to find bad stuff.
Awesome.
Really cool. And I like the practical elements of that, right? Like I enjoyed that. It's very specific to Zeke, which I think is a really useful thing. We should actually get him to come on here and talk about Zeke at some point because he knows so much about it.
Whoever we want to bring on to talk about Zeke, I am totally open for that. That is a fantastic tool.
Oh yeah. We're absolutely going to have to bring Aaron on. And then as we talked about very briefly, I did John Hubbard's SOC management course, right?
How'd that go?
Management 551. It was a cool course. So like, very tuned in my opinion, as I talk about this, so the Zeke training first, I'll say like, you could basically go from 0 with Zeke into value from that. Like it's very much like 0 to hero and you can take it as far as you want. So like you can be advanced and I think still get something out of that. Especially like it's a chance to test your skills and stuff. And like especially on like day 2 and day 3, like you start to hit a lot more advanced topics. John's class, really good class, definitely built a little bit towards kind of the newer SOC manager, the newer SOC builder. So I wouldn't say that a lot of the concepts within the class were particularly new to me or like, oh my God, this is like groundbreaking stuff. It's stuff that we've talked about on this podcast. It's stuff that we talked about when John was on this podcast, right? Like it's that kind of stuff. It's stuff that I've been doing for a while, but there were a lot of interesting nuggets of value that I think were in there. And if nothing else, it was particularly validating to do like an official SANS training where somebody kind of thinks the same way. It kind of validates a lot of my crazier thoughts about running security operations. And I thought it was really good in general. Like it's definitely a worthwhile class. If you're like starting in the SOC management space or you're leading or you're building a SOC for the first time, you'll get so much value out of that class. Like an unbelievable amount of value you will get out of that class. I got a decent bit of value, just not a lot of new stuff for me, but it doesn't mean I didn't get value. But I will say like, if you haven't been doing this for years, so much value, so worth it.
I was just going to say, it sounds like your counterpart friend of ours from DPS that is basically you
also
in a different
took
body
it and basically said the same thing.
I was just going to be like, and that means that they're at a SANS quality level of understanding.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. I'm not going to say that I'm at a SANS quality level of understanding.
No, I was saying your counterpart is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then the last training, and I'll talk about it for a minute, but then I have a disclaimer to add. So this week I got to do a 2-day training from our friends at Recon InfoSec. And we've had Recon on the show at least once. We've talked a lot about OpenSOC. We had them come on to talk about SOCX, all that stuff. So like we've been friends with Recon on this podcast here for a minute, right? So last year I did their training, like their general training as a company, like my team did it. This year they're trying a new model a little bit and they just started it. So this was like the pilot course of this, where they're kind of doing online training for individuals. And there's a 2-day, there's 2 days, and then you can take them together for a 4-day. Full disclaimer. I was offered this class for free, specifically to give them feedback on it, as well as to, talk about my thoughts and feelings of it. There's no expectation that they're going to get a good review, none of that kind of stuff. But I do want to be transparent that the course was free specifically so that I could both share my experience in it and give them feedback on what I thought could make the class better. So as with any opinion that you hear from me, take me with a grain of salt. But in this one, if that makes you take me with more of a grain of salt, feel free. But I do assure you that it will not in any way, shape, or form color my opinions or what I share. I'm just big fans of the Recon folks. So I took the 2-day essentials course. And to break it down, you can take the essentials course and the operations course, which are 2-day courses. They're $2,500. So for a 2-day course, a SANS course that's 2 days, about $3,000, right? So you're about $500 cheaper. But if you go to the 4-day, you're about $3,500. So like it's only you save like $1,000 by doing the full 4-day together. It's obviously the kind of training that you're probably going to want to have your company send you to, stuff like that. So here's a little bit of kind of what this training looks like. So on day one, it's a lot of kind of chatting, and there's a bit of chatting. So they kind of do basic threat hunting tools, methodologies. They walk through like kind of scoping along the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and they do this all with you in their live environment, their network defense range, which is what you've seen in OpenSOC and so on and so forth, right? So you're going through this stuff, you get access to all these tools, and you're basically following along as you're looking at this alert and kind of scoping out this potential incident. And then day two, pretty much all the day, you're splitting into teams, and they're splitting you into teams, and you're working with the team and you're finishing that task. So you're fully scoping out an incident. You're hands-on in an environment, and in an environment that's actually changing. So they're kicking off new attacks as it goes, all that kind of stuff. Very similar to when I did the team training, just, they're selling it for individuals. And basically trying to figure out what happened. And then at the end of the day, there's an attacker debrief where the attacker actually goes through and says, this is exactly what I did. And then they talk about exactly how you can find those things. Everybody tracking so far?
Yeah.
Cool.
Tracking like a bloodhound.
Cool. So,
Sniff, sniff.
Thoughts, feelings, and emotions. First off, while the Essentials course kind of says it's focused on developing solid security analysts and incident responders, this is accurate. However, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a beginner course because it's not. I did not I have been doing this for a long enough time that I held my own, but I wouldn't say this is a course for beginners. And I did provide some pieces of feedback that could make it a little bit more beginner friendly. I'm not going to go into those though, because those are kind of in my feedback side, right? What I will say is if you've been doing this for a while, so like if you've been in a SOC environment, if you're familiar with like Windows endpoint logging, you're familiar with what some attacks look like, you're familiar with MITRE ATT&CK to a certain extent. If you have some basic familiarity and you're looking to both test your skill set and learn more, this is really for you at that point, right? Because you're getting access to these advanced attack scenarios that you're probably not seeing in your everyday job, and you're getting a chance to hands-on go investigate them. And I don't think there's anything on the market training-wise like their network defense range. I think it's phenomenal. BSD, got something?
I agree. So, like far as like, with things but just in general, there's not a lot in the market out there as far as like training. You really have to dig, and you really have to, like you said, well, pretty much yeah. you have to interact with folks.
This is not a theory course. This is pretty much all hands-on. This is pretty much all go find bad and struggle until you get to a point where you're stuck, and then ask a question, either on your team or ask, Eric or one of the other individuals, and they'll come in and they'll help walk you through it because it's training. It's supposed to be that way. If you're trying to up-level your skill, though, this is what I'll say. If you want to be really good and you really want to look through that advanced attacker and you want to look at what those advanced attackers do and you want to understand it and you really want to look into live breach investigation training, I honestly don't think there's anything better that I've ever seen. And I said this about when I had them come in and do it for the team, and I love the fact that they're offering it for individuals at this point. I really do. Because I think that the training is valuable enough that you shouldn't have to have your whole company do it. Like, it's nice if just one of your people could go, or you go, I would like to do the recon training. I think they're going to give a run for their money for pretty much every training vendor out there with this. And I think as long as you're coming in understanding that there's a lot of working by yourself and there's a lot of struggling through problems and there's a lot of getting help when you need it, but that you're actually doing the kind of work and getting guidance on how to do the kind of work that you would do every day, it's probably the best thing that you could do to prepare you or sharpen your skills or make you better at threat detection and response, threat hunting, and scoping a breach and talking about those things. And I think at $3,500, I don't think it's expensive. Like, it's expensive because $3,500 is a lot of money. But I don't think the value that you're getting is expensive, if that makes sense.
right? And that's worth way more than 3,500. The value that you're getting. So
Yeah.
to me, and I agree with you on this. To me, spending that $3,500, even though in looking at it from a physical standpoint, that's a lot of money. But looking at it you got to think big picture here. If you're looking at it and you really, and this with anything, if you really want to be good at something, if you really want to be around in whatever industry that you're in, you have to invest in yourself. And that doesn't mean money. That can mean time. That means time. That means working with people or whatnot. It's not about money, but if you're looking at it from a standpoint where you're thinking big picture and you have the means to do it, that by far goes. You get a lot more than you get your $3,500 worth plus more.
And this is what I
So
would say.
I agree.
If you're not a dead set beginner, if you've been in the industry for a little while, you've been doing this, or you've spent a lot of time practicing yourself and like learning a lot of the core concepts of like how Windows logging works and like how threat detection works. If you've got some background and you're looking at the wealth of training opportunities in front of you that would prepare you for a job, right? I don't think that there's a better one to prepare you for a job. Like if somebody came into my team and said, I've gone through the Recon InfoSec core training, which is the 4-day range and all the stuff. And I start asking them questions about what they got out of it. And pending that they actually got something valuable out of it, like pending that they learned what you can learn in that training, they'd be a very strong candidate for my team. Because it's giving them real experience working on real breaches with real tools in a simulated enterprise network. But there's really nothing else like that.
And just to be sure, this is not a paid sponsorship. This is entirely.
Oh, we make no money for it. Like they're not paying me shit. They gave me the training class for free. Again, full disclosure, they gave me the training class for free.
But if they wanted to, kick some money our way on the side on the download,
we would tell them no.
Yeah.
We would tell them, look.
Because I'm never ever gonna allow myself to be judged or be considered in that light. It's never gonna happen. However, if we ever did take sponsors as a podcast, I'd only be willing to take sponsors of companies that I really like, and they'd probably be one of the ones that I would consider because I genuinely really like the stuff that they do, and I'm not going to promote somebody that I don't like.
Yeah.
If I don't think that they have something worth promoting, right? So,
And this is why we like you.
I mean, dude, all you have at the end of the day, I'm sorry, all you have at the end of the day is your name,
Yep.
your reputation, and what you stand for. I'm not willing to jeopardize that for any dollar sign. Like I make enough money. I really don't need to jeopardize that for dollar signs.
And that's it's like a sub talk about something that's especially important in the information cybersecurity industry, right? Like we're often given positions of trust. We have access to trust information, and so that reputation, your name, those ethics, the morality is something that you can't put the price tag on. That we need to hold into a higher account because of that trust that we're given.
We have to constantly, as information security professionals who have access to things, hold ourselves to a higher standard than most of the people around us. Because Exile, you nailed it. Like we have trust. And people who listen to this podcast, like maybe you think I'm full of shit, and that's cool. You're welcome to, because half the time I think I'm full of shit. But assuming if you listen regularly, we have built some trust with you as a listener. I am not willing to jeopardize that trust for a dollar amount. Like it's just not in who I am as a person. There are better ways to make money than jeopardizing trust.
Exactly.
So as I say that, I really do feel strongly about this training, but I again make the caveat that it is not for a dead beginner because it's a lot of time on your own and a lot of time figuring things out. And if you work really well in that environment, that's awesome. But I mean, you're going to struggle a little bit. It's not like a traditional training where you're just getting taught. But that's also, I think, what makes it so good is you get to work on the kind of stuff that you would work in a job, but probably more advanced stuff than you see every day.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, are we on the news?
Let's do it.
Somebody else go first. I talked a lot. As an open call, somebody, BSD, take it.
Okay. All right. So news wise, I'm gonna talk about my article that I brought in tonight, right? So I wanted to talk about and this just came out today. I saw this earlier this afternoon about Facebook Messenger bug that allows spying on Android users. I know this will make a lot of iPhone people happy.
Yep.
Yep. I was waiting for it understood. I was waiting for it. And apparently well, even though Facebook they've already patched this, by the way. So it's a flaw in the Android version of the Facebook Messenger that allows attackers to pretty much spy on the users and potentially identify their surroundings without them knowing. A security researcher at Google Project Zero discovered the vulnerability. Um, Her name is Natalie Sivanage, right? And hopefully I'm not messing up your name, Natalie, if you're listening. But she pretty much found a flaw in the app's implementation of the web real-time communication protocol, which, for those of you who don't know what WebRTC is a protocol that can allow you to make like audio and video calls by exchanging a series of thrift messages between the callee and the caller. So in a normal scenario, audio from the person making the call would not be transmitted to the person on the other end accepts the call, which, of course, that's like a typical phone call. But the thing is, this is rendered in the app either not by like the set local description until the person being called has clicked the accept button or setting the audio and the video media descriptions. So in general, pretty much, this is just a pretty bad flaw.
Yeah.
If you're on Android, they've already patched it, by the way. So just update to the latest, greatest version of your Android platform.
If your service provider has it available, so that's another thing. And something that pisses me off about the Android version of Facebook apps is like they come as the service provider app, so you can't uninstall it without rooting the phone. Like, it's so much bullshit because it's not an actual like app that's required for maintaining the phone, maintaining our service providers. It's just a fucking social media app that you can't remove because of some like back alley, backroom deal that is made. Like, and now there's an intent, like there's a pretty bad vulnerability in this that you can't remove as a normal consumer.
You know what you do? Buy an iPhone.
I mean, you know what? I was literally waiting for. It's like I said, I smell it. I think he's gonna say it, and he did.
Look, man, I continue to stand that I would rather pay money for a product than be the product.
I'm about to just go pick up like one of those Linux-based phones and just do some swapping on it.
Oh, so speaking of apps, if I may cut in, because I have an app.
Yes, you can.
So we talked a while back, and it's been a little while about the Apple lawsuit, right? Epic Games suing the hell out of Apple, right? So this was kind of an interesting one. It ties in an interest that I have in how Apple's going to handle it with a genuine hatred for Epic Games, largely because I just think they're immoral jackasses for the most part.
This is the Fortnite company, right?
Yeah, this is the Fortnite company.
Yeah, like fuck Fortnite.
So basically, because of this and because of some of the scrutiny, which this is good news for the most part, Apple announced that it's going to reduce App Store commissions for smaller businesses. So any developer who earns less than $1 million will only pay 15% commission on in-app purchases rather than the 30%. So that's forward movement to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
All right.
That's
you ready for Epic's response to this?
Yes.
They said the move doesn't go nearly far enough, that they're doing it to remove enough critics so that they can get away with their blockade on competition and their tax on in-app purchases. Again, it's not really a tax. Like, they're hosting your shit. They're making sure it doesn't have malware. They're protecting their... Anyway, I'm not going to go into that whole concept, right? But consumers will still pay an inflated prices marked up by the Apple tax. It's really amusing to me that they're using the word tax because it makes it sound very Trumpian. to me. Like
Fraud!
you know, fraud and collusion. But it makes it sound very Trumpian. Like they're using a word tax to like set people off. But this is the worst part about it. And this is just kind of continues to go on to my genuine hatred of them. It's everyone's duty to fight. It's not just an option that somebody's lawyers might decide, but it's our duty to fight it. If we had adhered to all of Apple's terms, passed the thing on, then Epic would have been colluding, again, Trumpian words to hell, colluding with Apple to restrain competition. This is where it gets really fucking bad, though. Epic, and that's why Epic mounted a challenge to this. And you can hear of any and something to civil rights fights where there were laws on the books and the laws were wrong.
No, you fucking shitting me.
Epic, a multi-billion-dollar company, is saying that them being charged 30% on in-app purchases for their product in a mobile app store is likened to a fight for civil rights.
Jesus.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even go on mute on this one.
Right?
Just...
Right?
If there's ever a time to ensure that Epic stops getting money from people playing their games, now is the time. Now.
If you want to talk about being arrogant and narcissistic,
there you go.
That's what this is.
Yes. Because having to pay 30% is just like getting shot in your bed while you're asleep.
Correct. And now, of any time to liken it to civil rights is not only tone deaf, but unbelievably insensitive.
Beyond insensitive. I don't even think they have a pulse.
That's right.
If to some funky little video game. Now I'm going on my rant. Oh my God. I done
do it. Do it, man. Bring it.
You're comparing a funky little game, and your world is this small right now, to a movement where black folks, I'm just going to say black folks, fighting just for basic human decency in the civil rights movement. You're comparing that to a video game?
To paying 30% in-app purchase on your video game.
Which is mostly just for costumes, too.
Exactly. It's mostly just for costumes.
Yeah. It's not even, they don't even have a leg to stand on with this crap.
No, not even a little bit. Like, that's a serious statement.
Yes, a very serious statement. And for them to even say that just shows the rock that they've been living on since the beginning of their little company. I'm sorry, their company is this small to me right now. It's 2 feet tall for saying stuff like that. Bravo, Apple, keep doing what you're doing. I might even buy an iPhone just because.
Right? Dude, I'm just saying, like, Apple has every right, and Google does it too. Like, Google charges 30% too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but nobody talks about Google.
Steam charges 30%. I bet you any game you buy through Epic charges 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's pretty dead standard.
Well, I don't buy it through Epic, so...
Sure, but the only difference is that Apple, and I would actually like Apple to offer external installation options.
Mm-hmm.
I would like that to happen. That's the outcome that I would like to see.
Yep.
I don't want to see them be shut down from in-app purchases from their app store. They have every right to do that. I would like to see Apple say, you know what, fine, we'll let you install your own shit. Good luck with your malware. Like, that's cool to me. But they have every right to do what they're doing, and they're not really doing anything inappropriate.
No.
And to liken it to civil rights is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, like they're cutting down to 15% if you make less than $1 million a year on your app, leans a bit into some of the wealth redistribution. That's also a current hot topic.
Sure. And if nothing else, it's at least helping out smaller companies and developers. And I can appreciate them taking that step. Even if they're only taking that step specifically to kind of remove some heat from them, I can still appreciate them taking the step. Because look,
50%,
businesses are here to make money.
Yeah, 15% on less than $1 million is still not an insignificant amount of money.
No. But I mean, How many people do you think Apple has working to police their store, make sure that things are good, run
Right.
validation checks? Like, they're supporting that entire ecosystem. Like, they're allowed to make some money. That's why Epic makes money when they sell games, and that's why Steam makes money when they sell games.
Well, it's our and again, Epic. No. You know what? For those who have ancestors in the civil rights movement, please don't support Epic. I'm here. Let me behave myself. Oh my goodness.
I really do love the use of the word tax and collusion throughout their statements, though.
It's straight up like pulling from Trumpism play cards.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Trumpism play cards, and I apologize, this just blends so well. I'm going to jump to the next one.
Well, I was going to say
in
we
it.
could do that, or we could jump onto my Apple one.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Jump into your Apple one.
So
Then we can
bite
jump
into
into the Trump one.
Yeah.
But we'll bite into the Apple first, and then we'll jump into some Trumpies.
Did you just say we'll bite into the Apple first?
That's exactly what he just said.
I see what you that's
See,
well
see
done.
the wordplay there.
Fraud and collusion.
But yeah, while we're talking about Apple, I wanted to bring up all the big news for us with the Big Sur push and the big old privacy stuff that came out from that. Did you read up on this? See this?
I saw it, but I'm not super learned on it yet.
Same.
So what it was there was a huge outage and privacy concerns with Big Sur, specifically with their the OSCP. I'm trying to remember the breakdown of that, but how it uses to check for certificate revocation, like that protocol, the OCSP, the online certificate status protocol. That they were having some issues with that, with how Big Sur does developer ID certificate checks for apps, since Big Sur is moving to the mobile way on the desktop of how it installs and manages apps. And they had a issue with it on the Apple side, and it's their internal servers. So it caused a huge outage. Like, it was causing performance issues on everyone that upgraded to Big Sur, because these checks weren't allowing apps to be installed or run, because it wasn't able to get back the verification, which led to some researchers seeing potential private information leaks with how it was doing that. So that was the big hoopla about that.
There's another interesting privacy thing, and I'm familiar now that I've kind of caught up on it, and it sucks.
Yeah.
But it's one of those vulnerability more than intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Apple did do made some stuff in response on the 15th. It's worth reading, but basically they said that it's the privacy stuff isn't a concern, because when they do the checks, they're not actually pulling any specific information. They were keeping track of IP addresses that were associated with developer ID certificates, but that they have stopped doing that, and that they are committing to, I think it was in the next year or two, to where was the specifics in this? But they're going to do some additional privacy and security stuff to focus on ensuring that information stays private, and that they will give users the opt-out option for these additional security features.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on as you bring that up. So Safari is taking a huge step forward, by the way. The next version of Safari is going to explicitly, by default, prompt you anytime a website tries to access your cookies or other data, and let you decide if you want to allow it. By default, no extension, no nothing. It's also going to provide you a privacy report.
Yeah.
So you can literally look at a privacy report. You can see what's being blocked, what attempted to hit, how many trackers are on the website that you're on, how many websites you've connected that had trackers, how many trackers that were prevented from profiling you, and the most contacted tracker that you use.
That's going to be huge for the third-party cookie system and the tracking pixel. That's going to be
They're going to give you literally a privacy report card that tells you all this stuff built base into Safari. No need to go use Privacy Badger or any of those things, which are really good. Mm-hmm. But they're building it right in. This continues to go into my whole statement about I'd rather pay for a product than be the product.
Yeah, It sounds like Apple, because they're based out of California, and how the CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Act, is just had the increased legislation measures passed by California. How they're instituting that into their software across the board, which is going to be good to see. It is good to see, and will be fun to watch how the rest of the nation responds now that California-based tech companies are being forced by state law, not federal law, state law, to make changes to conform to one state.
And I mean, any website that does stuff in California has to worry about CCPA too, right?
Yes.
Because it's about the residents. So basically everybody has to worry about CCPA. But just kind of really cool stuff that's coming in Safari that you kind of reminded me of there. So fraud and collusion. Yeah. Fraud and collusion.
Yeah. Speaking of fraud and collusion, you had a Trump thing?
Yeah. Chris Krebs, the Department of Homeland Security director, who basically ran the CISA, which was basically the Election Security Foundation, just got fired for saying this has been the safest election ever and my department has found no fraud whatsoever. So I'm pretty sure he got fired over Twitter, which is how most of Trump's recent firings have happened.
He did. Yeah.
But yeah, so the dude who's very qualified and basically said there has been no fraud that we have found from any digital perspective got canned for saying that out loud.
He literally got fired for telling the truth and holding an ethical line.
Yep. And several of his department actually left too when he got fired. They were like, fuck it, we're out. And then like you go through the tweets, right? Because I'm a glutton for punishment, so I want to. And somebody like screenshots his Wikipedia page. They're like, Bachelors of Arts. How's this guy even qualified for cybersecurity? I'm like, if you just read on a little bit longer, you'll see his past jobs too. That's how he's qualified. He was a fucking director at Microsoft. He was the director of security at Microsoft. Like, come on. Like, the dude is qualified. Very qualified. But yeah, he got fired for being honest and, you know.
I think I saw a response to that I think is a valuable response. And in the future, people are going to see individuals who've been fired from the Trump administration as a bonus rather than a negative and want to hire those people.
Right? Probably. And I mean, I think he was getting ready to quit anyway, and no one has said a bad word about him. Very qualified for his job, very open and honest, and he held an ethical line. And like, that's the administration that we're in. If you hold an ethical line, you're fired. So, I mean, news worth knowing about, not something that I really need to like harp on or stay on for a while, right? But definitely news worth knowing.
And there's a lot of news about that. So that's definitely a thing that if our listeners are interested in digging into, like plenty of information out there.
Now, XL, don't you have a return to an old segment?
I was going to say, speaking of things catching on fire, we have.
I see what you did there. You're just biding your time.
We're returning to an old segment of This Week in Ring because I saw that Ring has made the news lines again. This time, not by potential like private police collusion and privacy invasion, but
fraud,
actual potential harm to your home. Because if you use the wrong screws to attach the Ring doorbell camera, the second generation, I think it's the second or third generation, whatever the newest generation is, to your house, the battery will overheat and potentially catch things on fire.
Because 2020 is all about shit catching on fire.
Using the wrong screws, like how did this get past QA? Like,
they obviously only used one set of screws.
Jesus,
dude, it costs extra. It's like another 35 cents to go to the hardware store and try new screws. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's
Bezos needs money, man.
There you go. Hey, just ask the Rockefeller tree in New York. About things catching fire.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that tree, and that someone was like, "If this tree isn't symbolic of 2020."
I didn't see this, and now I need to go.
And the fact that they found a dehydrated owl in the tree as well too.
Oh my God, I did not see that. Jesus.
So
But yeah, so the ring
when-
stuff, like real quick, I just want to wrap up the ring stuff before we move too far on that. But they're recalling all 350,000, or they're recalling 350,000 second generation Ring doorbells because of this overheating battery issue.
That's going to be expensive. If you own one, you should probably listen to that
throw it
recall.
away.
And also, if you listen to us, why do you own one? Like, I don't think we've picked on anything as much as we've picked on Ring.
Well, not anything has really given us much information to pick on. As Ring.
That's true. But there's been no target like the Ring doorbell since the start of this podcast.
Listen to me. If you're listening right now and you own a Ring, I got one thing to say to you: throw it away.
And hope that it doesn't catch on fire in your
Yeah,
garbage.
just throw it away. Just get rid of it. Yep.
That'll just
get rid of
invoke another part of 2020 with the literal dumpster fires that have been set.
Speaking of literal dumpster fires, I'm growing quite the collection of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know those 100% soft dumpster fires, the happy
Yes.
little dumpster fires?
Yes.
I'm actually growing quite a collection. I am up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with at least
8 on
3
the
more
way.
on the way. And they're all different. They're all different variants. So I have at least 3 more on the way that should be here by early next year, and a nightlight version. So that'll
Yeah,
be
I'm ready for the
11
Yep.
when all is said and done.
Nice.
And I will tell you that, like, I totally got most of them on eBay at super stupid high prices because I didn't catch them when they dropped. But I just love that dumpster fire. And for whatever, I mean, in 2020, it feels fitting that I decided to collect dumpster fires
Dumpster
and
fires.
Legos.
Yep.
Legos being the other one because everybody in 2020 apparently is starting to build Legos.
That's because we're done making bread.
Right? We're all done making bread.
Yeah, the
We
muffins are
we
ready.
decided that working out just isn't really working.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now it's like
So let's build Legos.
So
No,
to move things along, since we're
Yeah.
getting
Yeah, are
short
we
on time here,
done with the news?
We're done with the news. I was just gonna say, like, in the spirit of what's going on with the holidays, what I wanted to like have for our topic discussion today was related. I had 2 friends that informed me that they were unceremoniously let go from their current employment. And
This is a triggering topic, by the way, because last year at about this time, just into the beginning of December, I was unceremoniously let go from, or not last year,
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Wait,
I was unceremoniously let go from my job.
which
Oh,
brings
my.
up why, like, because we're coming into the holiday season where for various reasons, like some industries it's just slow, so they have to cut people, they have to cut payroll costs. But for whatever reason, the holidays, corporations like to let people go, and I thought that'd be a good thing to talk about is how can we help our listeners just go through the process of, if you find yourself unceremoniously out of a job during the holiday season, what are some things that we can do, discuss, reach out?
This is my suggestion. This comes from a movie, and it's going to sound really cheesy, but I don't remember what movie it comes from. And that's Be Aggressive. Be aggressive. What fucking movie is that from? Like,
I agree.
being out of work sucks, and it's really, really hard to like kind of take that, right? Like, it's really hard, especially around the holidays. People have issues around the holidays. It can taint the entire experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, take a couple days, recenter yourself, and then get to work. Like, when I was out 2 years ago, like, I must have put in 1,000 resumes, probably, or several hundred resumes, like, submitted. I looked for any open job, jobs that I knew I could do, jobs that were what I wanted to do, and jobs that, like, I knew I was capable of, but I didn't really want, but I needed a job. And I did that. And what I would also recommend to everybody, and this is not something that I do very well, because I'm a prideful jackass, utilize networks. Tweet. I mean, if you tweet that, like, you just got let go and you're looking for a job, like, people will kind of
Respond.
send that along.
Yep.
Hell, tag us and we'll send that along.
Yep. We'll send along.
Yes.
So I want to
Like,
I want to piggyback on that real quick and just say,
go ahead.
Small, consistent daily goals is a huge thing too. Like, so when I had to look for work earlier this year, like, I set a goal, let's say 3 or 5 applications in a day. And once I hit that goal, I would go do something fun as a reward for doing that. And then if I wanted to do more later, I could, but I would just set consistent goals every day until something finally came through.
Now, there's one thing that's really important that I want to cover because we'll jump from this right back into coping strategies and how to make this work. But undoubtedly, you're going to end up hopefully with a job interview. And in that job interview, somebody's going to say, what happened with your last job? And that's a really hard question for people who have been fired to answer. And I genuinely suggest that you don't lie about it. However, I also genuinely suggest that you're honest and professional about it in an appropriate way. So don't bash your ex-employer. Don't say I was unceremoniously fired. Don't even say well, I was let go. Ultimately, I believe that I was let go because we had core differences in opinion on how some things could get done.
Even if the previous company was a big pile of shit.
Oh yeah, and ultimately, what you're really coming at is it ended up. I was there, and changes happened, and it just ended up not being a good fit. For the way that I work or my personality or the way that the company wanted to move forward. It's a very professional way to kind of answer that question. And it's a very professional way to say, like, one, you're not taking full blame. You can say, like, if you fucked off, you fucked off, that's on you. But like, if you're unceremoniously fired, especially like what we're talking about, it ultimately comes down to there's differences in opinion and how we're going to move forward. We had irreconcilable differences, or we had some differences that we didn't think that we could work through, and it's time to look for other opportunities, and it's that simple.
Or you can also say too, because I've said this before too, I'm revealing this online. I've been fired before from a job.
We all have, man. It happens to everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you not worth something. It doesn't make any of us not worth something. Like, that's very important to make clear.
That's my whole point. And this is actually truer words that I've actually said. When they asked me why were you fired from the job, I said, I still to this day can't answer you honestly as to why I was let go. Maybe they thought I wasn't a good fit and was too afraid to tell me. I couldn't tell you to this day why I was let go.
Yeah, and you could leave it at that too. Honestly, I asked and I didn't really get an answer, or I didn't get a good answer if you didn't. To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm assuming that it's not a good fit, and honestly, I wasn't feeling like maybe it was the best cultural fit anyway.
And then you could lead into, because if they ask, hey, so what do you expect from us at this new job if we should hire? And then you can lead into say, hey, all I asked is that if there's something that needs to be fixed on my end, and you see that this needs to be fixed, please tell me so I can fix it.
And I really don't want a Ring doorbell as a sign-on bonus.
Again, throw it away.
If you give me a Ring doorbell, I'm afraid I'll have to throw it in your trash just in case it lights on.
But as far as like some coping strategies, like what are some things that the two of you have done other than like, because I know the you're gonna feel the dive into the depression that happens when you get let go.
You go through the whole stages of grief exercise to be ultimately true. And that's why I say, like, it's very important for me that I'm going to say this again. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. But look at the opportunity and look at what happened realistically and see if there are self-betterment opportunities for yourself. That's very valuable. That comes around the acceptance stage, really. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're unemployable. It doesn't mean you're unfixable. You can move forward. You'll be fine. It doesn't take away your value. It doesn't make you less valuable. If anything, it's a learning opportunity, and you can learn from that and you can grow from it. I totally go through the 5 stages of grief. So, like, I spent a little bit of time in denial. I spent a little bit of time angry. I spent a little bit of time just questioning everything, then down in the dumps and sad. And eventually I get to acceptance, and I kind of get hopeful for what comes next. Because to be honest, in any situation where I've been let go, it's been largely all situations that I didn't really want to be in anyway, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, I was at the job because I was comfortable, but like I knew culturally it wasn't a fit, or like I knew I wasn't able to have the impact that I wanted to have, or any of that stuff. I just wasn't quite ready to look for something else. So it just kind of streamlined that process. but like accept the 5 stages of grief. Like it's gonna happen. Be okay with it.
And it's okay if you move back a stage or two through the process. Like it's gonna happen. Just the big thing is like what for me is I was intentional about maintaining contacts with support groups, so that if that happened, there were people who were at least in enough consistent communication with me that they could let me know or call it out and be like, hey, you're being stuck here for too long. What's going on? Is there anything I can do to help?
And
again, leverage your support system.
yes,
In this sense, don't be me. Don't curl into a little ball and be too prideful to admit that you don't have a job until you found another job, because that's what I do, and it's not healthy. And I'm only telling you this because I know it's not healthy, because it's what I've done. Like, don't be me.
Right.
Like, don't let your pride get in the way of you getting help from your support group.
And if it wasn't for COVID, I'd say it's also can be helpful to go to a batting cage, because hitting some balls with a baseball bat can be very cathartic.
Or a boxing ring, or literally anything where you can hit stuff.
Yep.
It's helpful.
Or you can watch a movie that motivates you. So, and this is a true story. After I got fired, and like I said, the different stages, I was upset because I'm like, okay, they never told me what I did. Did I do something wrong? You know, you just I started questioning everything, and I was just like, that was the first stage. The second stage, I was just like, this is crazy. I mean, they could at least, now I'm looking like, you should at least did this. You should at least just tell me, give me an opportunity to help.
And if I screwed up, just tell me, just tell me where I fucked up, and I can accept it. Or like, if you just ran out of money, let me know you ran out of money, because I can accept that.
Yep.
But then what changed? Here's the turnaround. I was sitting one day and I was flipping through the channels, and the Rocky IV scene came on, Hearts on Fire.
Of course, it's Rocky
when he was training for the Russian, and he was just going through all these different exercises, and I'm gonna do the connection here. So as he was going through the exercises of lifting those heavy weights and punching the bag, as you should be like getting out there, putting your resume out there, say, hey, I'm looking for work, talking to this person, talking to your network. That's all part of the training that I was looking at. And then at the end, when I got called back for an interview, and then I look at the scene with Rocky IV when he's standing on a mountain and he's screaming, Drago! And then you can see, and you can say, I'm employed. Like, that was the connection that's just the way my mind works when I do different things.
I'll tell you, like, here's my coping strategy. So that be aggressive thing. Like, I would spend about half my day looking at job opportunities, hitting up some very specific contacts, talking to people that I thought might have a fit. You know, my resume is already tuned. I did that first, and then applying, and just aggressively applying for jobs and taking phone calls. And then the rest of it, and it's funny when I look back on this, because of the way it all timed out, it was really genuinely interesting. Because it was also like subsequently right before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. And like, I'm a big Kingdom Hearts fan, but I've only really played Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Right. And then I learned that Kingdom Hearts 3 was encompassing that story and all 9 mobile games and like handheld games. So I spent my free time literally watching all the cinema sequences from every other Kingdom Hearts game, and then playing and beating Kingdom Hearts 3. And then right after that, I was back at work.
Now, here's something, too, I'm wanting to point out.
It's kind of a blessing. Like, I got to experience that. Sorry, go ahead, BSD.
Now here's a tip. If it was a situation where I'm out of work now, like the young man that you stated earlier, Exile, that was let go or whatnot, out of work or whoever. Here's and this could be a tip that somebody can take or advice or not take. I would sit down, I would cut on the video, and I would talk about my experience, like as if I'm being interviewed, and I'd put that out there on Twitter so fast and let people know what my skill set is, just off the rip. Hey, we're in the land of video. Why not?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean,
let it rip.
There's a
Do we
lot-
have additional cover on this topic, or should we move along?
I was just going to say there's a lot of stuff we can do, but I think what it comes down to with that last part is don't be afraid to be creative. And
Yep.
when you need to do stuff like play a video game, play D&D, maybe pick up a hobby, like all that stuff is okay because that'll also help you with your work-life balance. But we can keep talking about this for probably another 45 minutes to an hour. Like it's a pretty in-depth stuff. I just wanted to bring it up since there was some date things that happened today with it, and we're coming into that season. But BSD, like we're gonna try out this new name where we're calling reducing the attack surface. So what do you got for us today?
Well, today we're going to talk about using cross-site scripting to get a shell. Okay, and for those of you listening who are not familiar with cross-site scripting is a vulnerability that's usually found in a lot of websites and even sometimes in client-side applications and mobile applications as well. And it's pretty much just it results from a situation where a lot of like characters and pretty much bad code that allows folks to inject custom code into your application or your web application or your client-side application. So with cross-site scripting, I was looking at just when you're doing an attack and coming at it from an attacker's perspective. And I've been seeing this a lot, especially now during like the holidays and everything else. Looking for cross-site scripting bugs inside of chat applications, like client-side chat applications, whether it's like, for example, like say a Facebook Messenger, or if you go to a website that say for like Dell support or whatnot. I'm just using Dell as an example, not saying go out and do this. But from that standpoint, when you go to a website and they have the automated, hey, how may I help you? I don't know if they're automated or not, but actually looking for cross-site scripting bugs within those applications themselves. And when you get the user, for example, if you use like say reflective cross-site scripting, if you get the user to actually click on say your JavaScript link or whatnot, or if you find a flaw within the application or the web application in general, and you get the cross-site scripting to actually work and fire off and hook into a browser executable, but it gives you a shell back to your system. But even though in some cases you might be in a sandbox, it has to be from
it's worth
really
mentioning
get to
that
a good
has to
shell.
exploit a browser-based vulnerability to get you a system-based shell,
Right.
since modern browsers sandbox pretty much everything that runs on an individual tab.
Pretty much. Now, it can like I said, it can still work within just you'll just be in a sandbox. You won't be able to do much at the OS level. But all in all, if there's a vulnerability within the browser itself, then yeah, there's a possible chance. I mean, a rare chance, but it's a possible chance that you can gain access to OS level capabilities using cross-site scripting. A lot of places in general look at cross-site scripting as not a big deal. It's like, oh, okay, you can fire something off on the website. But if used properly and effectively, you can cause a lot of damage on the network. Damage from a standpoint as far as like gaining access to things, getting access to maybe creds or anything else. Well, stealing creds to gain access to other things on your network, whether it's file shares or whether it's just in general, but mainly like file shares and any other sensitive information within your network in general.
Yeah, so Understudy, what do you got for us? You just talked about all that wonderful training. You've got to have something on your
Right.
mind for us.
So we've actually covered some of this technique base before, right? And it's a similar technique, and I'm gonna harken into which one did we decide that we were going on?
Cross-site scripting.
All right, shit. The one that I have is for the host side shell. Damn it! What do you got?
But it's but it is JavaScript shell.
Yeah.
JavaScript
So
reverse
like
shell.
host side shell, my approach for that, and Excel, it'd be if you want to cover like cross-site scripting. And so first off, like there's 1,000 IDS signatures that'll help detect potential cross-site scripting.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have a lot of a use case that you can pull from there, right? Just from open source IDS signatures and things of that nature. A lot of those are built to detect cross-site scripting.
Yeah. I was just going to say with cross-site scripting, which if people aren't familiar, is commonly referred to as XSS. If you see it,
Correct.
X-ray Sierra. If you see it referenced, but most of it is picked up by a lot of modern tools because it does get passed through as part of the client to web server for that. So having to do like manual hunt stuff is a rarity anymore with cross-site scripting.
I mean, it's in your network traffic, and most network tools are looking for it. So if we then assume host shell, the approach that I'm looking at there is, if you're executing a shell on a host, which means if you're executing arbitrary code on a host, that's largely executing across command line logs. You're going to see that. So we talk a little bit about parent process to child process mapping. Oftentimes you're going to be looking for obfuscated code in a command line where the command line was kicked off from your browser.
Yeah.
You're going to have to baseline this because you're going to have browser updates and all that kind of stuff that also kicks off some stuff that looks similar. But that's really the approach that I would take for this kind of stuff when you're looking at, host side shell.
Yeah. I'd say the combination of the two is really the detection for the behavior is weird parent-child process with obfuscated code in the command line.
Mm-hmm. And baseline the shit out of it just because browsers do funny looking stuff.
They do funny looking stuff. But I mean, some of the stuff you'll notice too, like if you start manually looking at the code obfuscation, it won't just be like base64 encode decode. Like it'll also be obfuscated in how they wrote the code, like doing bit shifts and stuff to rebuild specific words. So
yeah, so that's the detection. Do I get to take us out?
Yes, today? Please take us out because this was wonderful. I enjoyed getting to hear BSD again. We covered a lot. We went from good energy to talking about fires, and now take us out with a fire.
Fraud. No fires. That's fraud.
And rings, throw it away.
With that being said, look, I get it. We're all just biding our time, okay?
So, yes, we each got a bad pun in the episode. We will call this the episode of the puns.
There we go.
There
we go. Anyway, so we haven't forgot about the Share the Mic event. Expect that we're going to be reaching out to people here pretty soon. It'll probably be the next episode that we would all be together that we're looking to do that. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Next week is a guest episode as always. And genuinely, as always, I always appreciate all of you who show up, who come and listen to us, who, as we vent, as we rant, as we laugh, as we make really bad jokes, and all of the above. And to my lovely co-hosts, Mr. BSD Bandit and Mr. Exiled Atreides, I love you both to death. You're my favorites. With that, everybody, it's time for you all. It's time for us to go and all of you to go forth and find badness. Ow!